In 2018, North Melbourne defied the expectations of the AFL world, lifting themselves from the bottom 4 in 2017 to 9th place on the ladder. As evidenced by their bold attempts to recruit star opposition players, the Kangaroos have clearly showed an intention to avoid a traditional list rebuild. Rather than giving in to the temptation of seeking draft picks, the Roos have aimed to regenerate their list through aggressive trading to avoid a lengthy stint near the bottom of the ladder. Naturally, there are both pros and cons to this approach to list management. North Melbourne are a proud club, and while it's been a little while since they tasted the ultimate success, they've generally been around the mark for finals for the best part of 2 decades. Being competitive is etched into their culture, and thus I would suggest that a prolonged stay around the mark of the bottom 4 would be unacceptable to their board and their members. This stance also makes sense from a corporate perspective. According to 2018 data supplied by Fox Sports, North Melbourne have the 4th smallest membership base in the league, ahead of only GWS, Gold Coast and the Brisbane Lions. As such, it could be argued that North aren't really in a financial position to take the risk of a full list rebuild. There is also a lot to be said for establishing a winning culture at a club. Teams that shift their focus from winning games of football to so-called development run the risk of establishing a culture that isn't predicated on winning at all costs. Paul Roos shares this view, who described the Melbourne Demons as having developed a soft culture as a result of tanking. This winning culture could also be more conducive to better development of young prospects. Personally, I believe there is a strong correlation between the amount of unsuccessful draft picks a club has and the amount of beltings that team suffers throughout a season. In other words, there is only so much young players can learn from continual 100-point thrashings, which is evidenced by the development problems a club like Melbourne continually faced until Paul Roos took over. Having better players around your youth can only enhance their development, as opposed to leaving them exposed to win games of football on their own. There is another benefit to bypassing a rebuild. While North may have missed out on securing the signatures of stars such as Dustin Martin, Josh Kelly and Andrew Gaff in recent years, they got bloody close. It is evident that North want to attract an A-grade star to their list through trade or free agency. Aside from money, players are motivated by success, and thus it stands to reason that North are far more likely to attract a star to their list if they are playing regular finals. Elite players in their prime rarely move to bottom 4 clubs, regardless of how much they are offered, and thus remaining competitive would clearly help the Roos in this regard. And by the same token, a more successful team is more likely to be able to retain their young players. Unsuccessful sides like Carlton and the Gold Coast in recent years have struggled to retain the players that they would like to keep. There is, of course, an obvious downside to remaining perennially competitive, and that is less access to elite young talent. Naturally, the higher you finish on the ladder, the later your draft picks are, and thus North's access to top draft picks would be compromised. However, there is an argument to suggest that the teams with the best draft picks don't necessarily draft the best talent. There are plenty of examples of elite players being taken in the later rounds of the draft, and thus it could be argued that it is more important to have a strong development culture in place in order to make the most of the picks that you do have. Hawthorn are an interesting club to draw comparisons to with regard to North, as they too have embraced the no rebuild approach. Whilst it is certainly true that Hawthorn built an elite nucleus upon their early draft picks in years such as 2001 and 2004, they were able to refresh the list through shrewd trading and late round drafting, which ultimately allowed them to win 4 flags over a 7-year period. From this comparison, we can perhaps take away that trading is an important method of maintaining and refreshing a list, but in order to become a genuine force, you need to have that foundation of elite talent to begin with. You can certainly trade it in, as North have attempted to, but it is a far more expensive method than trying your luck in the draft. While North may not have the elite nucleus yet that the Hawks did to launch for a genuine premiership tilt, that could still come with time and patience. The moves that they have made now will ensure that the transition to their next premiership tilt will be less of a rocky road as it otherwise could have been. As for North Melbourne's current list, there is certainly talent, although the majority of it is mature. In 2017, North boasted the 2nd youngest list and the least experienced list in the league. Following some mature recruits this off-season, they've jumped to be the 7th oldest list and the 9th most experienced going into 2019. The Roos identified that they needed some mature talent, particularly in the midfield, and acquired some players who could provide some run to a workman-like midfield that perhaps lacked pace. While this is the case, the expectations for North in 2019 must shift. This aggressive recruitment policy shows an intention to compete in the here and now, and thus, anything less than a finals finish in 2019 should be considered a failure. The defence is miserly, the midfield has improved and the forward line is spearheaded by the prolific Ben Brown. While I would rate their chances to finish near the top 4 fairly slim, the rapid improvement North have shown over the past 12 months is a credit to the club. They may not appear to be a premiership contender yet, but they have built a list with the capability to play finals in the medium term. And who knows, someone like Josh Kelly is out of contract at the end of 2019. They may just land their star player yet. So what do you think about North's list management? Have they gone about it the right way, or should they have embraced a proper rebuild through the draft? Comment below your thoughts. Thanks for watching this video, and make sure you hit subscribe for more AFL content like this. Thanks.